Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Seb here, and today we're doing another book review. Today we're covering a very special book, I think, which I've read for the first time, and is my first foray into this particular author. I am talking about 1987 by Robert McCammon, his brilliant nuclear war epic, Swan Song. I'm gonna just start the video pretty simply by reading you the synopsis as it is on the back. There are very few spoilers, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, here we go.
An ancient evil roams the desolate landscape of an America ravaged by nuclear war. He is the man with the scarlet eye, a malevolent force that feeds on the dark desires of the countless followers he has gathered into his service. His only desire is to find a special child named Swan and destroy her. But those who would protect the girl are determined to fight for what is left of the world and their souls. In a wasteland born of rage, populated by monstrous creatures and marauding armies, the last survivors on Earth have been drawn into the final battle between good and evil that will decide the fate of humanity.
So there we have it, guys. 1987 by Robert McCammon, Swan Song. This book is awesome. That's how I'm going to start this review. Obviously, if you want to get more into a criteria section here, we're going to start with what's good and what's maybe a little less so good. Of course, that's subjective, but we're going to start with the good here. Let's stay positive. This book is awesome, guys. If you love Stephen King, this is 100% a book you should read. And I say this as a guy who Stephen King is probably my favorite author. This is just like if you haven't read anything by Robert McCammon yet, this is about as good a place to start as anything. I say that because I have never read anything by Robert McCammon. Therefore, if this thing gives me such a strong feeling, I am positive that I will like other things he has written. I'm going to try Boy's Life next. I know that there's a lot of other books out there by him, and straight up, this is a great book. Let's talk about a little more specifics here. The characters. If you like Stephen King, there's probably a reason for that. And one of the specific reasons I often point to is character work. Now, specifically, I think Stephen King is really good at getting to the heart of modern just humans, Americans specifically, because where most of his books take place, but specifically he has a way of delving into the psychology of people that just feels really human in its honesty. And I think that Robert McCammon is just as good. I'm not gonna say if not better, because that wouldn't be true. I think they're both about as good as they can be. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but yes, they are both very great character writers. The characters in Swan Song, chef's kiss. There's I'll give you the names, but I won't spoil too much because I don't really want to do that in this video. You got the titular Swan, you got Joshua, you got Sister Creep, and then of course you got villains like Friend or Roland Croninger, and of course Colonel Macklin. Those are characters I would love to talk about more in depth if I were to do a spoiler video, but this is not what that is. Therefore, I'm just going to tell you that these characters go on one hell of a journey. Each one has their own arc, the conclusion of which to some may not satisfy everyone. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later, but for now, let's say that if you want good characters with interesting, because what I think makes this book great at the heart of it is that when you find yourself in the aftermath of a nuclear apocalypse, those who are survivors are going to be ranging from wild varieties of life. And so what you have is a varied cast of characters from all walks of life, and therefore you get perspectives which you may not have gotten. And they're very optimistic. This is not the reason I would not call this a horror book, as I think it is labeled, is because this book is so optimistic. That's the same reason I wouldn't call it Stand a horror book, because that one, while the first part of that book definitely has a horror, because it deals with the virus killing everyone. If you've read the book, that's the general premise. But of course, if you read the rest, it becomes much more like Swan Song, and it becomes a certifiable epic, a battleground on which good versus evil can match in the way that you see epics did back in the day when they were written by the greats in the ancient civilizations. Now, I'm not going to compare this to the Iliad, but it is arguably comparable to that in its intention, if you understand what I mean by that. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of my depth. I haven't even read the Iliad yet, so that's just me hyperbolizing everything I'm saying. Yeah. The themes, as I was touching on there, they range. Of course, there's like the sort of warning of nuclear war, but that's not really what this is about, because the bombs go off pretty quickly in this book, and the aftermath of that is what we're dealing with. And so if you've ever watched one of those terrifying nuclear war, effectively horror movies like Threads or such like that, you will get that, but with a hint of optimism and hope. That is sort of, I think, at the heart of the novel. It is hope, the battle for hope against just crushing despair in the face of waste. I think the setting is not, it's unique, say. Of course, you've got big games like Fallout, which deal with post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear settings, and it's not unique per se, but I think the way that Robert McCammon handles it is really quite brilliant, because he as it's sort of, they do discuss this more in the book. They talk about the idea of just resetting the world, basically, and that's effectively what the bombs will do to the world. So it's just sort of like this blank slate upon which two factions will rise, and one in the factions are, of course, good and evil, and you got to see which one's going to prevail in this battle. And it's about how hope can turn us into warriors, and how it's just, there's, the morality in it isn't too complex, like, say, in some books you'll read, but it is, at the heart of it, about a book about hope, even in the darkest of times. Now, I've covered the good, not as extensively as I could. This is me talking on the fly, so these are the few talking points I could think of. There's much more detailed reviews out there, but if you're watching this, I do appreciate it. Let's move to something, maybe not so good. The bad, let's say. Now, this is obviously subjective in any case scenario, and personally, I don't have much bad to say about this book at all. It's not perfect, I would say, but I don't think anything really is. Even my favorite books like Lord of the Rings, I think, are very flawed, and there's reasons I accept people's just saying they don't like it. But this is the kind of book which I think is more approachable, because while it is long, there's not really any fat in there. Sorry, I'm going back to the good, and I think I do think that stands. Or to say, you can say it's really well paced. There's never anything that doesn't come back and become relevant later. Even some of the minor characters which are introduced seemingly just for a episodic Nightmare Wasteland plot point come back later. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you would know if you've read it. The one thing I'm going to say that's bad is, and this is something that comes down to our personal preference, and this is going to be a little bit spoilery, but I'm mostly addressing the people who have read it in this section. Roland Groninger is a character who fascinates me from the beginning to the end. His, descent is very human, and I think it's basically a depiction of any, kid, basically, who succumbs to the darker parts of himself, and with that, which we all have, I'm pretty sure. But for him, they were obviously more on the surface, obvious from the beginning. But I think the ending there, I would have liked more resolution than I was given. I think what I liked actually about the very ending of this book is that this book ends arguably pretty quickly, but right up, you don't know what's going to happen until the very end. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You can assume the best will turn out because that is how narrative usually works, with good prevailing over evil, but you don't know, and the book calls it real close to the end on where it's going to land on that thing. There's a lot of great coming of age stuff in here. There's a lot of just relationships. If you, I mean, like, Swan is a great character. I'm just gonna say it out loud. I don't know if she's my favorite character, but she might be my second favorite. You got Joshua. I think Sister is probably the best character, but that's up for debate, obviously. Hey, guys, read Swan Song if you have not already. Robert McCammon is a wizard the way he turned this arguably simple premise of life after nuclear war and turned into this environmental piece about the preservation. It's because it is a cautionary tale, like any nuclear story we could read or write or create. This is a cautionary tale, but it has the environmental message at the center of it, which I think is what elevates it above what what it could have been. He could have made some sort of weird dystopia out of this, and he could have gone really into the dark, but he instead decided to go the Stephen King method with this and add hope to it. Hope being the crutch that holds it all together. Now, I'm not going to say he was inspired by Stephen King. I'm pretty sure they've been publishing it for about the same amount of time, but these two very much are kin in that sense. They are two of a kind. They are brilliant writers, and I cannot wait to read more about Robert McCammon. Now, should you read it? Absolutely, guys. I've been saying this from the beginning of the video. You should absolutely 100% read Swan Song, unless you are not comfortable with the subject matter. Now, I probably should have mentioned this in the back, but this is a bleak book, guys. We're talking about nuclear war and the aftermath of that, specifically, when there is nothing. And so you deal with topics such as just militarism and sexual assault. It is not always a good time. In fact, it is very rarely a good time in this world. But if you want to go on a journey from hell and back with these characters, then this book will deliver that experience. Robert McCammon wrote something which I know I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and I really hope they can possibly adapt this, because this has so much potential, either as a movie or a TV series. I'm not the expert here. Whatever it is, get this on the screen. More people need to know about this book. And I think because it's not Stephen King, and he doesn't have any adaptations, don't quote me on that, I actually haven't done the research, but there's a reason that Robert McCammon is not the household name that Stephen King is, and that's because of his lack of adaptations, I think. So this is one of those books which I would love to push into people's hands and just get the word out there. I'm not saying it's a niche book by any metric, but I do want to say that I really enjoyed it. And if you haven't read it yet, if this is the first time you're hearing about it somehow, then you should absolutely pick it up. If I had to give this guy a rating, guys, I guess I would go with 9.3 out of 10. And I mean, I don't go much higher than that unless the book is just nigh on perfection. And this book is not perfect. You know what I mean? It's everything I wanted it to be and more. And so, guys, with that, I think we are coming to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I did a little bit better next time. I'm getting better, I think, at talking to the camera. But regardless of all that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. And hey guys, I'll see you guys in the next video.